Thanks.
I hope you're ready to put your multiplayer skills to the test because it's time for Worms Battlegrounds.
Yes, let the wormy, squirmy war games begin.
The classic Worms formula is still very much at the heart of Worms Battlegrounds. You and your opponent take turns unleashing an arsenal of wacky weapons against each other. And the last worm standing is the winner.
But as usual, it's the race against the clock which will prove the biggest challenge. Getting from one side of those maps to the other is never easy, especially since those worms aren't the fastest animals, and all it takes is a single missed jump to end your turn.
Affirmative. The poor, soft-skinned worms are so easily damaged. They need some nice, sturdy metal armor like mine. I'm invincible.
Invincible, Darren? What about water?
Water? Where? Keep it away from me. Remember, I'm not waterproof. My poor circuits.
Yes, well, like Darren, water has always been feared in the Worms games. Scoring an instant kill with regular weapon damage is almost impossible unless you can knock the worms into deep water.
Ah, yes, the baseball bat has won many a game for me. And in recent Worms games, we've seen the addition of dynamic water that players could splatter each other with. But Battlegrounds takes its Watery Warfare a step further with the new Aqua jetpack.
Affirmative. Like the normal jetpack, it can fly you to hard-to-reach spots, but it has the added advantage of doing water damage to any enemies you can submerge along the way. Genius! Oh, and there's even a new story threading these turn-based battles together.
Well, I think calling it a story is a little bit generous. The infamous thief Tara Pinkle heads up your team on a mission to retrieve the sacred stone carrot from the villain Mesmer. I mean, it makes no sense, but at least the voice acting is good.
Make your way to that crate with vigor and gusto. Not my two hunting dogs, Vigor and Gusto. They're dead now anyway.
Much like all Worms games that have come before it, Battlegrounds is all about the multiplayer. There are a couple of hours worth of challenges to complete, but they're really just training missions. Some of the objectives are quite interesting, but sitting there watching the computer opponent think about what it's going to do gets pretty frustrating.
These worms give AI a bad name, sitting there for ages thinking, only to decide to skip their turn. It's outrageous.
Yes, and as you say, Goose, the focus really is on the multiplayer. After a couple of decades of Worms games, they've really polished the formula. Each weapon has its own pros and cons. The holy hand grenade's always great for dealing a load of damage, although its blast radius often makes it just as lethal for you as your opponent.
Well, guys, I'm a fan of the shotgun myself. It's the only weapon in the game that lets you get in a sneaky second shot before your turn's up, which is often just enough to finish your wriggly foes off.
Valhalla awaits me.
One thing I'm not a fan of, though, is the way Darren kept running away and hiding.
It's a legitimate military tactic. But when you're outnumbered, it always pays to retreat and let your enemies fight amongst themselves. Every great general knows that.
Yes, well, Darren's questionable tactics aside, I had a lot of fun with the games that we all played together in the Den of Gaming. I can't say the same for the online play, though.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The turn-based style really drags when you're spending most of your time just sitting there silently by yourself, watching people you may not even know make their moves.
Yeah, and the worst is if you accidentally press a wrong button or, miss a jump. And then your turn's wasted and you just have to sit there watching everyone else shooting at you for a few minutes. Not cool.
Yeah, but as you say, it's the couch-based multiplayer with friends is where this game really shines. Pulling off stylish moves against your mates is so much fun, like a perfectly aimed Super Sheep KO. It hasn't changed things up much, but Battlegrounds is the best in the series so far. It wiggled and wormed its way into my heart, so I'm giving it an 8.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, but it also felt a little bit familiar. I mean, with a new Worms game almost every year, the formula's starting to stretch a little bit thin, so I'm giving it 6.